What's next for a neighborhood under siege? We'll have to wait and see. Reporting live, Sadie Sinclair, Channel 7 News.
This is San Francisco.
Welcome back to San Francisco. So have you heard of Vallejo or Fairfield? Or perhaps even been to said places? Just northeast of San Francisco and absolutely part of the Bay Area is Solano County. And in Solano County, some billionaires are buying up land to try to build a sort of walled off community of what sounds like libertarian wannabe Elon Musk types. And when I heard about the community that they were calling California Forever, I was like, cool, all of those sociopaths can hang out in one spot together and leave the rest of us alone. That was my first thought. But of course, if California Forever ever comes to be, they wouldn't leave the rest of us alone. First of all, there are already people living in the area, and because the type of community that they want to build will require a sort of underclass of people who are not them to build the place and maintain California Forever, you know that they would concoct some sort of caste system and then try to destroy fundamental labor standards just the same as they've done with companies like Tesla or Uber. So today I'm going to talk to Anna Kirsch, who is from Vallejo and makes art and started Artists Against Billionaires, which works fairly autonomously along with other groups in Solano County, which actually seem to have stopped some of the art washing that California Forever people were trying to do as they try to get people on board with this monstrosity that will certainly bring gentrification and wreak ecological havoc. And if you like this podcast, please go to patreon.com/SadFrancisco, where you will not only find all of our past episodes, but you will also find opportunities to send us your cash, which will help with the more long-term sustainability of this project, San Francisco, so that Tofu and I can rely a little bit less on our side hustles. Thank you so much to Kevin, Carrie, Dale, and Leah, who are the latest to sign up to the Patreon. Thank you, Anna Kirsch, aka Girl on Bus, for coming on to the show to tell us about what's happening just a couple counties away from where I think a lot of the people who will be listening to this are living right now. But I feel like this is a topic that is hugely pertinent to anyone who lives anywhere near the Bay. And that is these billionaires kind of buying up a ton of land in Solano County and trying to create a community that is techno-futurist, like playground, I guess you could say. I want to hear from you, Anna. You've been doing work with Artists Against Billionaires locally in Solano County, and maybe you could do a better job of, well, you could introduce yourself and then maybe sum up what's happening right now in Solano County. First off, where is Solano County for people who don't know?
So Solano County is the county north of Contra Costa. So you keep going up Richmond, keep going past Pinole, Hercules, cross the bridge, you're in Vallejo, and Vallejo is the first city you'll see in Solano County. So Solano County technically extends from Vallejo in the south, going as far as northwest to Dixon, I think. So it's a mixture of like Vallejo, which is like a small city, and a little bit of like rural / suburban communities. So the interesting county, but it seems like we're far away because we're across the bridge, but I try to tell people we're closer.
It's not really. Yeah.
We're closer to San Francisco than San Jose is. So.
I know people that, like I used to work with someone who would commute in from Vallejo every day. So when I worked at this nonprofit in town, so it's really, really not that far. I've also organized with people that will come into town. And we're working with the group that I work with, sometimes Gay Shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe you could also tell us like how you got linked in with Artists Against Billionaires. Who is Artists Against Billionaires?
So I actually started Artists Against Billionaires kind of on the fly in response to California. It's a really long story, or not, I guess it's a weird story, but so Vallejo has like a monthly art walk, which I participate in. And it's usually like a DIY slash community slash informal, local artists, getting together, selling their art. California Forever made a art gallery in their downtown office in Vallejo. So they have offices in every city in Solano County for, marketing purposes. And they converted the front of their Vallejo office to a quote unquote art gallery. And I saw right away that that was not a legit art gallery. So I set up in front during art walk with my sign, my handmade sign that I made like the day of. And it was just me by myself. And a bunch of random people started gathering around and saying, "What are you doing?" And I pretty much said, "I'm here because this is not a legit art gallery. It's a bunch of tech billionaires trying to pretend to be with the community and using artists as kind of like a proxy because we all know that gentrification starts with artists." So I kind of didn't really have a set agenda, but I just wanted to make a presence that this fake art gallery does not represent like actual artists who live in Vallejo. And then yeah, it took off. A bunch of people gathered around, and now we have like a kind of little group getting together of me and a bunch of other local artists in Vallejo, as well as I mean it's open to everyone in the Bay Area. I have friends. All of my friends are artists in San Francisco and Oakland, and they're also participants in this group.
Tight. Yeah. So, I mean, art washing, I guess, is a term that has come up more and more. Yeah. Also with some friends who are artists here in San Francisco and East Bay. And good to hear that people are like connecting across city lines, of course, because art washing is happening all around the Bay, which is a place that I think one of the things that I loved about the Bay is that like people do creative shit, whether or not they're getting paid for it. And I think as a result, unfortunately, like you said, you have like these nefarious characters coming in to milk what is like a really rich, like historically like tradition of like people who are making art together. You have art collectives and cooperatives all around the city and beyond. And yeah, like for California Forever to, which is again, like a bunch of billionaires trying to launch this sort of like weird real estate scam, as I see it, that promises a very tech-friendly world for rich people in the Bay. They're using, like you said, art to kind of give a nice veneer to what is ultimately a very, a capitalist project.
Yep. Pretty much.
And, yeah, like I was wondering, like who. So you mentioned like the people that are coming in from all parts of the Bay that are like showing up. Like you said, basically point out that this is art washing.
Yeah, and like you said, it is happening a lot, and it is happening all over the Bay Area. They're either overtly or covertly behind a lot of, they've been dumping a lot of money in like nonprofits, and I think to me it sounds like they're trying to buy votes because now recently, seeing that they're getting kind of exposed and people have a lot of questions on the intent of these billionaire tech investors. They've been recently dumping a lot of money on local nonprofits, and yeah, it just seems really conniving.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, and they do have the money. Again, this is like maybe you could mention a couple of the names behind this. These are people with a lot of means.
Right. So they do have an unlimited budget. What makes it also nefarious is we don't know all the people behind it, and they're not very clear on their motive, but there have been like lots of articles on it, reporters who have been trying to investigate. And the big names that we all know are behind it that you'll see in a lot of when you Google like who's behind this is so the big names are Maureen Powell Jobs, which is Steve Jobs' widow, Mark Andreessen, that bald guy who has a lot of weird manifesto ideas. If you want to delve into that, that's like a whole nother podcast. Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn, who also has a bunch of really bizarre tech optimistic centric ideas. Michael Murray, Patrick Collison, the founder of Stripe. Anyway, these are all like big names, and they're all billionaires. All these guys I just listed. And the CEO of California Forever, which is now calling themselves East Solano Plan. They're changing their names like every month. But the CEO person named Jan Schramek, I think I'm pronouncing it right, and he is a former Goldman Sachs investor who has friends in high places and somehow told these billionaires that, I don't know what he told them, but they are funding this. So, yeah.
I mean, it seems like, yeah, if you can hype up your friends who are also very rich, from position of like someone like Jan Schramek, you can get, like a sort of a hype cycle going, like with crypto or right now AI, to where like now people are buying tons of acres in Solano County in order to try to create what seems like they want to create like a little walled city eventually.
Right. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, is this just another housing investment scheme, like trying to put land for housing developments?" I think that's part of it. That might be a big part of it, but I don't think that's the whole story, because if it was just simply housing developments, there's so much land in existing city limits which have the infrastructure to construct, new housing developments, as opposed to the 60,000 rural acres they bought. It's non-irrigated, meaning there are no existing utilities. There's no water, wastewater, as there is, much less to support a future city of. They're trying to target 400,000 new residents, which is like the population of the city of Oakland. And this little pocket, if you look at a map, like this little pocket on Highway 12. So I feel like there's a little more to the story than just another housing investment, which is, that's a big part of it, but there has to be something beyond it.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen these same people kind of profess that they have these really grandiose ideas around kind of the future of the human race, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have a very specific person in mind that they want to populate places like Northern California with, basically replace all of the rest of us with. And I mean, on the real estate side of things, of course, like San Francisco, Oakland have been so gentrified that I guess this offers them, they're buying up, as you mentioned, like farmland, rural land that is coming at a much lower cost, with the eventual idea of creating a very specific planned community. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the details that you have heard them wanting to infuse this new community with.
Right. I don't want to interject too much of my personal opinions, because people are going to say, "Oh, she's just basing it on her, opinion. It's not based on anything." But I will mention a little bit of what they're officially saying, on social media, on their many advertisements that people have probably seen on TV, on Hulu, on Spotify. They're all over the place now. But on the surface, they're saying, they're going to build what will eventually be a new community. They call it new community, whatever that means. But of, eventually 400,000 people. They're trying to sell it to Solano County voters, because we have to vote on it, saying, "Oh, there's going to be new jobs. There's going to be high paying jobs," and
right.
To them, 88,000 is high paying. But Jan also said in an interview that the housing he's going to build is going to start at $1 million, which means he's targeting Silicon Valley workers to live in this community. Meaning, if you're not going to have a mortgage on $1 million home, which you can if you make $88K a year, you're obviously going to be a renter, which means to me, they are going to need an underclass of service workers to support the high paid tech workers who are going to be living in this community. But that's just a side note. What else? Besides the homes, they're calling it a planned community. So they want to build a giant solar farm on some of the land because they're calling it, they're all into like trying to sell it as it's really green, it's renewable technology, etc. Right. And that's a whole other podcast too.
I mean, meanwhile, construction, like new construction is the worst thing that you can do for the environment, period. The materials that are involved in construction, the amount of energy it takes to get people to and from a space who are working on the construction, who are involved in real estate, etc. We're talking about really, making global warming more of a reality than it already is. And in particular, this land in Solano County, as you mentioned, it's not irrigated yet. It is it's subject to fires as well.
There's actually, there is a fire going on right now, actually, in the area. And speaking on the environmental, so I forgot to mention that there are also, it is an existing environmental habitat. And if you're driving by, you're going to say, oh, it's just a bunch of grass. But it's actually, there are vernal pools. There are, it's on the Pacific Flyway, meaning when when birds migrate, they pass directly through, their flight path is right through this future new community where they bought their land. And there are several environmental groups that are very, very against this publicly. There is Sierra Club is against it. So in one of our art walk events, Sierra Club had a table. So Sierra Club is on public record being against this. And there's another local group called the Green Belt Alliance, their objective is to preserve open spaces in the Bay Area, which are becoming a lot more rare because of, like you were saying, so much of, any proposed development is not going to have a net benefit to, the environment. So there is a united front of environmentalists that are against it. In addition to the local farmers who are against it, in addition to, mom and pop, local residents and taxpayers. So there's a huge coalition of all kinds of folks who are against it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is Tofu, co-producer of San Francisco, here to talk about how you can support the show. If you have the extra funds, you can visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/San Francisco. There you'll find all of our past episodes, transcripts, and frequent community posts. Our paid members who are on the $5 subscriber tier will have early access to episodes a couple days before they go live on other platforms, as well as get their name shouted out in the intro of our episodes. Paid members on the $1 supporter tier will have their name featured on the end card of our YouTube videos and on our Instagram every month alongside our $5 subscribers. Go ahead and follow us on our TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube channel to get updates on the show, additional content, or to just interact with us. Lastly, if you're listening on audio platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a rating. It really helps us out. Okay, not so shameless plug is done. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, there are even, in local politics, it has gotten to the point where people are trying to stop this on a political level, with legislation. Are you aware of where things are at with these votes, as you mentioned?
So currently the land is zoned agricultural, meaning we can't, you're not permitted to build any other type of development on it. Solano County purposely passed this law back in the 80s because the same thing happened back in the 80s, and it happens all over California where someone has this big scheme to build a housing development in the middle of nowhere. You've probably heard of California City. There's the Salton Sea. There's all kinds of. Yeah. So this has happened before in history, and Solano County residents specifically passed this law to limit development on current lands that are not developed. And speaking on that, it's not preventing, you can build infill development. There are so many vacant lots, in Vallejo and so many cities, Fairfield, that could benefit from, housing. I'm not against housing. I'm not an NIMBY. I'm a victim of gentrification. I live in Vallejo. I know what it's like to be housing insecure, and I don't know if this is the right way to do it.
Yeah, no. I mean, if they like are specifically looking at or already have bought a lot of this land that is outside the purview of the regulations that and like the eyes that being closer to an existing city would bring, then you can assume that they want to build something that is beyond regulation, that is beyond having to deal with, oh, like, if we're building this, then maybe we should contribute to locally to other people, people who already exist within the county. But if they're buying land that is further out, then they don't have to deal with that.
I think that was another huge part of why they chose that location, because if you drive by, just like middle of nowhere. They purposely chose an unincorporated area that's not under any jurisdiction of a city council, because they want to be able to probably make their own city council and do all kinds of stuff. But I'm not going to speculate on that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think even like the little speculation that you've hinted at, I feel like it's on track. Like, as you said, we have seen people with a lot of money try to create these huge infrastructure projects that are going to make a few rich people even richer, as with California City. There's some good writing and a good podcast about California City that I'll link in the show notes, which, yeah, I mean, it seems like a very similar situation where it's like an attempt to create something out of nothing by some people who represent themselves as, sort of just like, oh, we're just big. We have big dreams. We support the arts, as with the art washing that we're talking about. And ultimately, I think, it is about like things like greed, and also the desire to not have to be told no by people that exist, that have lived in an area for a long time and might have some questions about like, oh, what are all these billionaires like doing here all of a sudden? But yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that, like, you were in there early, like making a point of making noise about the art washing, because that is absolutely what we know. It's a strategy for these like real estate barons, or in this case, like tech barons, to come in and make it seem like they are supporters of the local arts. Have you had success with some of the, I know that like you mentioned, like setting up shop like straight up outside some of these galleries? Right.
Yeah. So for the last few art walks, I have been me and our group, we had our table set up right in front of our office. So I think it was the February art walk. So that was like the second time I set up, because the first one was in January. So when I set up there, it was actually a big turnout. Like, we had a lot of tables around. We had Artists Against Billionaires. We have our sister group, Stop Tech City, which you might want to give them a follow, maybe interview them in the future. Sierra Club, Solano Together, which is the coalition of environmental groups. So we set up there. We had musicians. We had people sitting in front of their office in protest. So in that particular event, it was their fake gallery. They were trying to do I guess some kind of like women's month kind of art thing, where they were trying to get their own performers, and obviously their art show. So two of the performers, I didn't write down their names, but I can send you them afterwards. They were paid to perform at their event. So when they showed up to their gallery, they saw our big protest in front of their space, and they're like, local Bay Area, Filipino / people of color musicians who are going to perform. And they were asked to perform. They didn't know anything about California Forever. And when they showed up, they're like, what's going on? And, we gave them some zines and just kind of said, kind of why we were protesting. And right away they were not down for that. If you're from the Bay, you are so against anything resembling tech gentrification, billionaires. So they actually walked out of the event, and it actually made the local news that they walked out and chose not to perform.
Love to hear it. To hear it. It is that direct action works.
Yeah, that goes to say that they're really trying hard to sell. And if you look at their, social media, they're doing a hard sell, but a lot, most of us are not buying it. I think in total, 70% of Solano County voters are either strongly or somewhat against it. So that's a huge majority. And obviously, the more you learn about it and you learn about the other side and why we're against it, you're like, yeah.
We have a similar project here called the Civic Joy Fund that kind of want to do some more content on, where it's like billionaires putting up money for local artists to make some of their other policies more palatable to the public. And I mean, as long as artists have existed, of course, there's always like the issue of people getting paid for their work. And of course, like it can be extremely, validating, and it can feel amazing to like have someone come up and be like, oh, here, I want to pay you for your whatever kind of art you make. But at the end of the day, who is it benefiting? Is it benefiting you maybe a little bit, like because it's putting a little bit more money in your pocket? But down the road, is this going to mean that you can't afford to live in the area where you're currently living?
Right. Yeah. I don't want to, put blame on the nonprofits who accepted their money or the artists who were paid to perform for their events. Because I am very pro artists regardless. But speaking on that, so their fake art gallery, which was like, it seemed like a nonprofit, but it obviously isn't because it's funded by billionaires. After the last couple art walks where we were consistently showing up, they actually pulled out and are not going to do any more fake art gallery events anymore.
Oh, dope.
That goes to show that, do they really care about the community like they say they do, or are they just trying to put up a front? And when they realize they're not being sold, they're like, okay, fine, we'll try to invest in other avenues to try to convince the public.
They just dropped it like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Quietly, they're not doing it anymore.
Damn.
So,
okay. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear that it worked. And in that case, I'm sure that it will come up in other ways. Like, as you mentioned, like every time that a billionaire throws down some money to an organization, like how much does that organization decide to look the other way when that billionaire asks them to do something that is maybe not in the best interest of people in the area?
Yeah.
Who could say? I mean, it is a hard thing to, I guess, measure the effect that funding streams have on how these different organizations act. But that's why I think it's like super important to have groups like Artists Against Billionaires like out there doing straight up, like direct action and organizing people locally to do this work. So thank you.
Well, it extends to like the rest of my group, which I was trying to see if anybody else wanted to join today, but it's not just me. Honestly, it's the whole group. Stop Tech City, which is like the greater group that we're doing, and they've been consistently showing up and putting our events together, and
Do you want to like say a little bit about like the art that you make?
Yeah, sure. My artist name is Girl on Bus. Born and raised in San Francisco. I've been doing art my whole life. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the great, awesome art community we have in the Bay Area, especially San Francisco, Oakland. And I've luckily been, have been able to show art in, a bunch of places throughout the years. So I'm always grateful for that. And honestly, the art community here is awesome and supportive. And Artists Against Billionaires is a very informal group, open to everybody. It's not just me. So, anybody who wants to join, everyone's welcome to join.
Cool. How can people follow your work and like just get updates on what's happening?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram, I guess. So Instagram, Girl on Bus, Instagram, Artists Against Billionaires. Those are the main avenues where I post art and stuff.
All right, sweet. Yeah, we will definitely link to that in the show notes. And yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing. And hopefully we'll get a few more people that will link up, because as much money as these people have, of course we have like more numbers in terms of people. And it's incredible what that can do, even when you're up against like billions of dollars. Like, as you mentioned, the fact that they're even pulling back on this particular type of art washing that they were trying to do. That's like, I view that as like a win for sure.
Yeah, and we did make the local news, so I can link you to those local news articles.
Cool.
And I will say that even though it seems like it's only involving Solano County, I do want to say it involves the entire Bay Area, because we all know the Bay Area, the definition is obviously getting bigger, and what's happening in Silicon Valley obviously affects San Francisco, which is also affecting everyone else in the rest of the Bay Area. So we're all a big community, and I think it's to our benefit to pay attention on what they're trying to do, because if we let them do it in the middle of nowhere in Solano County, who knows what they'll be able to do afterwards.
Yeah, no, the Bay is super connected. And fortunately for us, that is a way that is something that these billionaires have to wrestle with. So I am thankful for that. But thank you so much, Anna. And follow Girl on Bus, follow Artists Against Billionaires, and Stop Tech City. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Sad Francisco. I am Toshio Meronek, and my co-producer is Tofu Estolas. Patreon.com/SadFrancisco is where you can find our past episodes and transcripts, and it's also where you can help us out with a donation. And if you do, it comes with some benefits like getting the episodes a few days early, and our gratitude for allowing us to keep making this podcast, which we love to do. See you next time in Sad Francisco.